There we go. There is an assignment right here which shows up. Do you have my screen? No.
No,
Did not work. Did not work. Okay. If you could put your computers to sleep, that would be really terrific. Thank you. Do you want one light on, or I think you can see behind me much better this way, right?
That's good.
It's good. All right. There is an assignment right here called the Career Center. September 17th, visit the Career Center. So September 17th happens to be Monday. Yes? So Monday, do not come to this classroom. I will not be here. Monday is your day to go to the Career Center. Okay? And the Career Center assignment is basically, it's a Word document you download from this link here. You download the assignment, you fill it out. And don't underestimate the Career Center. Truly, honestly. The Career Center is really valuable, even if you have a career and you're just learning in design. The Career Center is valuable because they have incredible resources to help you with jobs or networking or researching colleges or wherever you're at in your life. They have valuable resources, so it's worth visiting. Now, I don't want to tell you not to go to the Career Center Monday morning and get up at 6:30 and be there at 8. But if you're not there and you choose to do this assignment at a different time because you much rather stay in your bed like you did this morning, want to do, that's okay too. Just don't come to class. But make sure that you get the Career Center assignment done. You could do it today. They're open all day long. They're in the administration building on campus. And also, the advantage of Monday is that you can jumpstart your work. The other thing is John has posted, I want to call attention to this. Did you have a question?
Yeah, the computers.
It goes on and off. You know what? Okay. Let me quit. Let me quit remote desktop, which is now like freaked out. Force quit. Does everybody understand force quit?
Yeah.
All right, force quit is when things are really just not behaving and you want to quit it. All right. John is super good at responding to the Q&A. And I appreciate the fact that you all get on there. And when John responds well, I don't even step in, even though I see what you've posted. John has given you this link he created to the videos, which is at johnlemon.info. And so our goal is that we keep capturing, videoing our lectures. And that way, if you want to go back to them, like one of you said, how do you eyedrop the text? And one of you said, how do you save to all marks and bleeds, like I showed last Monday? It should all be on these videos. Unfortunately, after an hour and a half of talking, the video has lost its image for some reason, John says. Weird things. But all is not lost, because down here, this is a little tedious for you. You could listen to me for the rest of your life, because there are videos from all the classes I had previously taught. And although we're in CS6 now, the beginning of the semester, so if you kind of scroll back to 111 for the beginning of the semester, you would find some of the tutorials. So it's called Production Expert Sequence, the one with the yellow square with a blue outline, the last thing I demoed on Monday. This is the demo from my class last semester or the semester before. Okay, so they're available to you. And actually what we're going to demo today, oddly enough, turns out to be this lecture here. So if it doesn't work today or it doesn't get posted fast enough for you, you can poke around and you can use the YouTube scroll bar and try and find things that might be helpful to you. Okay? But nonetheless, I will proceed today demoing whatever it is you wish. I am going to demo this monster exercise because it's totally fun. And I'm going to demo the teacup exercise. And personally, when I demo these exercises, these exercises, I prefer to do it, honestly, a little differently than the book tells you. And the reason for that is I think that here we are in the artwork and resources folder for chapter 4. And the one assignment I'm going to demo for you for sure is called Beautiful Morning. And if I double click on it, so Teresa asked me what an INDT stands for, and that stands for an InDesign template. So if you wanted to have a file and save it as a template for future use, because you're always doing that layout or format, that's the purpose of a template. The text here is a Word document, and just like you place graphics in InDesign, you don't have to copy and paste. You can just place text in InDesign as well. So if they supply it for you, you may as well use it. And then they supply you with a graphic which ends in the suffix .psd, which stands for Photoshop. And if I double click on the InDesign template, the template's going to open. And check that out. Bless you. Oh, and it says it won't open. Here's your answer, Teresa. Because I wasn't paying attention down below and somebody had left InDesign 5 on. And so it won't work. So I got to launch 6. And for some reason I notice, which frustrates me, when I shut down my computer at my studio, I notice that InDesign 6 takes forever to shut down. It takes forever to load and forever to shut down. Do you notice that too? And I think the reason is there's so many bells and whistles in there that loads for you, and so many bells and whistles that have to get tucked back into their little place at the end that it just takes forever. So now if I double click on the template, because CS6 is launched, it works fine. Okay, and this bothers me. And I'll tell you why this bothers me, this template, because the sooner you truly, bless you, the sooner you truly know how to start building your files, just the better you're going to get it in InDesign. So this template exists, and you can do it that way if you want, or you could do it the Vicky way, which I'm going to demo, because it's fun. It's fun to intuit a document. I don't want you to rely so much on the book that you think that the book is the only gospel for how you build a document, because there's 1,000 different ways. So when you're on your own, yeah, use the book. But let me show you where we're going to head on this. But before I do that, before I get started, there were some questions. There were some questions that I want to make sure I can answer for you. So one was the wedding invitation, which had a document set up with all marks and bleeds. Yes? And marks and bleeds are when you have, I'm not going to need this anymore. Bless you, Tyler. When you have a document like this book and the color goes off to the edge of the page, it prints on a sheet of paper larger than the cover, obviously. So here's your cover. It prints on a sheet larger than the paper where this image or color, whatever it is, exceeds beyond the boundaries of the trim, which is called a bleed. And then once the book is bound and all set up, then it gets trimmed flush like this, and you have this nice clean edge, which is why you create a document with a bleed. So obviously, if you created an 8.5 by 11 document and you had a bleed on it, you would have to print it on a piece of paper that's larger than 8.5 by 11. Same thing when you go to the printers, these printers. Ink will never print to the edge of a page. It won't. It'll get all over the rollers, right? It'll get all over the printer. So there's always a little 1/4 inch gap. Even when you go to Kinko's and you ask them to copy something, they will never get the image all the way to the edge. So when you see something that's 8.5 by 11 that has color bleeding off the edge of the page, it was printed on a bigger page and then it was cut down to size. Okay? So this document was not set up, this document was not set up with a bleed. Not all is not lost. You can go back to File, Document Setup, and show more options. Am I in anybody's way by standing here? Okay. Show more options, and you'll show the bleed. And remember the artboards. Did I already go over what a slug is with you? No? Okay. So a bleed, you already know what a bleed is. You can now click the chain link so all settings are the same. And generally speaking, a standard bleed is 1/8 of an inch. And if I just type that in here, it will fill in all the boxes. There are times when you might want a larger bleed. For example, books with paper covers, but the cover wraps around it's a hardbound, it's a hardbound cover, but it's printed with paper and the paper wraps around the inside of the hardbound cover. Well, and the image wraps around the hardbound cover. That's where you'd create this incredible wraparound and bleed, so it certainly wouldn't be 1/8 of an inch, it would far exceed that. And that kind of information you would be talking to a print shop about. How much bleed are you going to need? How much wraparound are we going to need? How do I lay this out properly? You'd have a conversation with somebody, all right? You'd also create a mock-up. You'd also create a prototype. Okay, so now I've set a bleed on this document. A slug, so remember the artboard I held up when I was standing at the back of the room and I had all these notes on the side. I want this 10%, I want this 20%, so forth. That's a slug. It's side notes. So if I created a slug on the right side of this document, and sometimes I do for my clients' work, I'll show you where. I'm going to create a slug of 2 inches on the right side of this document and you see what happens. So here's my page. So this little red line right here, that's our bleed. So we would pull a graphic out to this bleed area if we wanted to bleed. And this slug is right here on the right. And I do a lot of forms for a client. And don't underestimate forms. Forms are truly a beautiful art. So there's a layer here, a template layer, which is locked. And we haven't talked about layers yet. You haven't learned layers yet, right? So they've locked a layer on this template, and they probably set up the document here with text boxes and picture boxes as layers. You can choose to use layers. There's different purposes for it. But when I was here and I tried to write here and the pen had that cross through it, which meant I can't do anything, that's when I knew to go see if they made a layer that was locked. That's where I intuited that. It wasn't like I knew. I just thought, oh, they must have locked something. So if I click on where it says picture boxes, that layer, it's just levels of art that you can access and turn on and off, see and don't see. So like if we turn off the picture boxes, watch those stacked squares go away. See, I'm turning off the eyedropper. I can lock it so I don't accidentally move things. Actually, they locked it for you, which is why you see this little lock symbol here. They locked it so you wouldn't accidentally move things. But I'm on the text box and, text boxes it says, and I use my type tool, and here I might make notes. Like here I might, in here, type the revision date, the name of the project, the person who did it, the date I created it, printing notes to myself, what it's called, and that's where I put it. Nobody sees it, never prints. The print shop would be able to see the slug in my file if they look at my InDesign file. I can also export my document with the slug showing if I want to as a sidebar note, and I'll show you how to do those things. So let me just save this document as a test because the purpose of this was to show you how to print with marks and bleeds. And I'm going to put it in the number 4 folder because I like staying organized. And actually I put the 4 folder on the desktop, I think. Here it is. So I'm going to save it in there. And then how you print with marks and bleeds is, how you export a PDF is you go to File, you go to Adobe PDF Preset, High Quality Print, and then it changes the InDesign name of your document, right, to the suffix PDF. And then I get a dialog box that shows up that gives me all my options now. So for the options of marks and bleeds, this is a 1-page document. I always like viewing after exporting. So I click marks and bleeds, and it's super simple to get used to this. You click marks and bleeds, which will show crop marks for the trim, bleed marks for where it extends beyond the trim, registration bars, which are target marks to show the printer how to align each printing plate when it prints, right? So it registers perfectly. That's why they're called registration marks. Color bars, which sit at the top, and when the ink goes on the paper, they measure ink with something called a densitometer. I forgot to mention at the end of the semester, we go to a print shop down, I'm sorry it's so far, but it's in Oxnard, and they're amazing. They are amazing. You get a tour that's truly ridiculously wonderful. Every student really loves it. It's very valuable. And by the time you get there to this print shop, you'll see this whole workflow. And because it's the end of the semester, you're going to feel super smug because you're going to say, I know that. I know that. I know that. And you are. You're going to realize that you truly are professional designers by the time you get to the print shop, that you have all the right tools and information at that point, which is really, I think, a great feeling. Plus, it's an incredible show they put on. They let you climb on this 8-color press, which is the size of this room. You get to see things bound and die cut. You see their pre-press department, which is essentially what you guys do, pre-press, pre-printing. All kinds of cool stuff. Puts the page information, the date and the name of the file, and what page, because if you had a book and it had 4 printing plates per page, 4 colors per page, each one would have to be labeled properly, and it automatically does it with the page information. How your bleed shows up is when you set your document up with a bleed and you click Use Bleed Settings. Notice this just filled in the box based on how we set it up. Now I can include my slug so you can see it, which is kind of fun, and you'll see what happens to the PDF file. That's it. So all marks and bleeds, just check it. Check bleed settings. That's all you need to do. And when you export your document, everything's going to show up just like I said. Here's the outside crop marks or the bleed marks. The inside trim marks are the trim of the document. The color bars are for measuring the ink when it's on a printing press. These are your target registration marks, which show up at north, south, east, and west. And here's my slug, which would say whatever notes I want to say. Like I print a bunch of business cards for a client, and everybody's name is different. So I build them in a file. I have a little slug on the right, and I say quantity 500, quantity 1,000, quantity 200. And that way I know the printer has it and I have it. Sometimes it's just notes to myself, but that's the purpose of a slug.
Did you say you have to specify the width of the slug, or
Yes.
you just type? Oh, okay.
Did I have to specify? Yes. I made a type box for it.
Okay.
But yes, if we go back to my InDesign document, when I set up the slug, I don't think you ever get asked to set up a slug in a document. Here I made it 2 inches on the right and nowhere else. I just like to put it wherever I want to put it. Like you might have special notes, like you might have in a document a score mark or a weird die line. So you might want to have in a slug area, bless you, notes for something, right? So that's the purpose of it. Okay, so I covered marks and bleeds. There was another question that came up. How do you eyedrop stuff? Okay, we'll eyedrop stuff. We'll do it. We'll do it now. Teresa had my class before, and she asked me something about paragraph style sheets, which is you're not going to always choose to eyedrop stuff. What you'll probably do when you create big books where you have lots of text or a document that has a lot of text, you'll create what's called a style sheet, which is a smart key. So you say you have a style to something. I'll just show it to you. I won't describe it. So let me view this without all the boxes distracting you. So let me just make a text box. Let me fill my text box with placeholder text. Can you all see okay? I'll blow up a little. And let's say here's my headline. So I'm going to show you 2 things right now. And this is kind of a jump ahead, but you guys can handle it. You're awake now. So I can select this line of type, and I can go to my character panel, and I can make it 30-point type because it's my headline. And I can, I'm looking for color here, and it's not here. So I'll go to Window, Color, and Swatches, which has my default swatches. The other good thing when they give you template documents is they give you ink colors they want you to use, which I'll select the brown, so the type's brown. And then I'm going to go to my paragraph panel and not hit a hard return because I want space after the paragraph, but I'm going to incrementally add space after till I'm happy, all right? They tell you the leading, remember? They tell you the leading, and they tell you the space after. But when you're designing something, nobody's going to tell you anything. You're going to make these design decisions, which is why I think the sooner you get your arms around how to design something, the better. Okay, and then I'm going to make this type white, and I'm going to make this type, I'll leave it at Myriad Pro Condensed, but I'm going to change the leading to 18 point, and I'm going to add space after this paragraph, like that. All right, so now I've got artwork created. Can you see the white type in the back? Yeah, okay. So to eyedrop something, all you really do, so if I want to make this line, I can click anywhere on this line down here, the first black line, which is short. And if you look at it, I put a hard return. If I go to type, show hidden characters, there's a hard return right there after this line. If I click anywhere on it, so really what I'm saying is it's not just a line of type, it's also a paragraph of type because it ends with a paragraph return. So if I click anywhere on it, I can go to my eyedrop tool and, no, I think I might need to highlight the whole thing. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. I'll go to my eyedrop tool and, I'm sorry? I might need to highlight the text. I might be wrong, but let's test it. I don't mind embarrassing myself and being wrong. So I'm going to just click on the brown type up above with my eyedrop tool and see if it impacts the entire paragraph. And it might just add space after, it might do nothing. Yeah, it just added the paragraph attribution because I had clicked on the paragraph. It didn't add the type attribution. So now, if I use my type tool, I highlight the whole line of type. So now it's going to apply to all the type that's selected, what I'm going to select with my eyedrop tool. And I'm going to eyedrop the brown, and it's going to give me the font and the type color all from eyedropping it. And then same thing down here. I can just select all this text down below, and I'll scroll back up. This mouse is backwards. It's very frustrating. And I can just eyedrop the white type right there, and now I've got the same thing. Okay, so this is what I do want to show you, which is more sophisticated. You ready for more sophisticated? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? You can do it, right? Not hard. I'm going to hit undo, Command Z, and undo again, Command Z. And this is what I'd like to show you. So there's something called, if you go to, let's say, the topography layout, it'll for sure show up there for your workspace. There's something called paragraph, which the paragraph panel I think you're pretty familiar with. But there's something called paragraph styles. And you're also familiar with the character panel. There's something called character styles. So let me show you what they are. They're incredibly useful. I use them only truthfully. And what that means is I've set this first line of headline text to be the brown and what was it, 30 points or something. If I click anywhere in that paragraph, I can go to my paragraph style sheet. I can use this little pull-out menu. Let me put it up high so you can see. Use the pull-out menu and create a new style. And I'm going to call that style headline. And I can make a smart key so I never even have to click on my, with my mouse. So I can hit the command key and the number pad on the right side of my extended keyboard, I can hit the number 1, and that's my smart key for my headline style. You don't have to set it up, but it's convenient. And now watch when we look at all these choices. If I look at the paragraph, the characters, notice it picked up exactly what I already had chosen in that paragraph. It picked up that the type was that font, Myriad Pro Condensed. It picked up that it was 30 points. It picked up that I had default leading of 36, which I'm going to change. And I'll make my leading 32. I'm going to tighten it up so you can see the difference. And I'm going to always change my kerning to optical. The only time I use metric kerning is when I'm trying to line up numbers. And I want, like, phone numbers, like if you put somebody's cell number and you put somebody's telephone number and you want the numbers to align instead of wiggle around with optical kerning, I use metric kerning. But otherwise for body copy I always use optical because that's how the designer wants it all to nest together. And then notice that I added space after that paragraph, remember? And the space after shows. And if we go to the color of the font, it shows that I picked the brown. It took the attributes from the paragraph I was highlighted on, active with, and it captured it. So I now have one paragraph style sheet. I'm going to put my mouse over the white text anywhere in that paragraph. I'm going to call it, I would ordinarily call it body copy, but I'm going to call it white body. And I'm going to make a smart key of the command and the 2 on the keypad on the right side. And then if we look at it again, it picked up the Myriad Pro font. It picked up the size 12.0 and 18. I'll change this to optical. It picked up my space after my paragraph. And if we look at the character color, it picked up white, right? So we say, okay. Now, here's the cool part. I can click this line of type of the headline. It's not active in the paragraph style sheet because I didn't use it. I didn't apply it. But watch to the kerning of this headline. Remember how I changed it to optical kerning in my paragraph style sheet? Yes? So I'm just going to click headline and, oops, and it tightened up. Did you watch it tighten up? All right. And then I'm going to select all this body copy. Actually, I'm going to select all my body copy. If you hit Command, Shift, and End, it'll take all the text to the end of the story. So it highlighted all my text right here. Did I do that wrong? Maybe I'm doing it wrong.
You just do Command
Yeah, but I don't want to change my headline here. I don't know why it's not working. All right, well, it does usually work. Maybe it's a new CS thing. But anyway, so my text is highlighted, and I select white for my white body, and there everything's the same. And what it does, and then here's, I can turn that into a headline. I can turn that into a headline. Now, the reason why this is so fun is I create this book, and it's all done, and we're all happy, and then my client says, you know what, we're changing our logo, and it's no longer the color of chocolate, it's now the color of blue. I'm thinking, I've got an entire book with brown headlines, and I don't want to line by line change the headlines to blue. So I can just double click headline, I can go to the color, I can change, I'll make it awful bright blue, and everything changes throughout however many pages I've got. A character style sheet is different. If I want this right here, this line of type to be brown, I can create a character style. It doesn't even have to be active. This is how you make a character style without having something to select. So I can click character styles, which doesn't deal with a whole paragraph. It deals with a character or however many characters you select. So I can make a new paragraph style sheet. I'm just going to call it brown. And it's based on nothing, because nothing, I haven't designed anything yet. I'll take my character color, I'll scroll here, I'll select brown, and say okay. That's the only thing this style sheet's going to do. So if I highlight ET, and I use my character style, it's going to turn it brown. If I double click here, it turns it brown. If I double click here, it turns brown. But notice, it still has the paragraph style applied. So if I change, let's say, this paragraph here where the blue and the brown is, and I change it no longer to be a headline, but I make it white, see how the character style still held on to it? The character style overrides any style sheets. Does that help you? Kind of fun, right? It's fun. Mm-hmm. All right. So don't worry about it. You don't have to use it yet. Now you just know it exists. You understand the eyedrop tool, because I can still do this. I can still take this line of type, and I can eyedrop this, and the eyedrop tool still works, right? So you can eyedrop anything you want. Any other random questions from your homework? Does everybody remember first line indent in that production sequence? Did anybody struggle with that? The yellow box with a blue frame where the first line sticks out in that direction. And everything's indented.
Yeah,
That's-
can you go over that
I-
and how to raise the caps?
Yeah, yeah. Let's select all here. Let's delete. Let's fill. You know what? Actually, I think I may have saved that document.
That text, did that text exist someplace? Do we have to type that all in?
You can copy it off the PDF. I think there is a place it copies off the PDF. Really. Okay, let's see if I can find chapter 2. What was it called?
Production.
Was it 3, chapter 3 or chapter 2?
Three.
And did I have a resources folder? No.
No, there's not.
Oh, because
Production
there's
is
no
separate.
resources folder. Okay, so maybe I saved it here. No. Let me try one more spot.
Those production sequence, the name of it.
Yeah. I should have named it better. See why you have to name things nicely? All right, I won't waste your time. Okay, you had a new document. Oops. I'm in InDesign. You had a new document. It was letter page. You turned off facing pages. If I remember right, you had about an inch margin, correct? And there was no bleed on the document because it had a white edge. I do remember, so you had this text box. I do remember we drew the text box right here. I remember the text box was like a creamy yellow color. So I go to my selection tool. I select the yellow, and I'm going to use my slider bar to make it just a creamy color. Now I've got a creamy yellow box. Whoops, that I had stroked by mistake. Let's make my fill active. Select the box, select the creamy yellow. Oh, I'm in the text tool. Okay. Active, fill, creamy yellow. That was hard work. Sorry. Let me make my stroke active. And the stroke was blue.
6 point.
It was kind of beefy. Teresa's telling me it's 6 point, and it had some double border. Yep. Then the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save my document, because anytime I do anything, I always save something. All right. And I'm going to put it in the type folder so we know where it is. There we go. Then, remember how I said the text was centered vertically, and it was inset about an inch from the edge of this text frame. Do you remember that? All right. So I'm going to make this a text box by clicking with my type tool in it. I'm going to fill it with placeholder text right now. Come on. Oh, thank you. You guys are on top of it. All right, I got black text, and I don't want so much text in here, so I'm going to get rid of that much of it. Then, with the box active, using my selection tool, I'm going to go to Object Text Frame Options. I'm going to inset the spacing of my text. So, I don't know, what was it, like a half inch, inch?
875.
875 it says. Good thing Teresa's up here, right? And I think I didn't change the vertical justification at the time I wanted to see on my type, but I'll make it vertical right now, which centered the text in the text box, right? Vertically. And remember, justifying it like on the wedding invitation was that one? That was a good thing to know, wasn't it? Okay, and then the question was, how do you make the caps? Let's just make our little headline here. The headline was small caps. So we go to the character panel, and the headline's what size type? 18 maybe? We're making it 18. And we're going to make it on 24-point leading. And right here is small caps. See that? Excuse me, you can also go to the character panel right here. And there's a pullout right on the character panel that also gives us small caps. Okay, that's it. All right, and then there's probably space after. And the other thing is I would select all, Command A, and I'm going to go to my character panel, and I'm going to always change that my kerning, the space between the letters, is optical, because I think it just looks better. Okay, now let's talk about first line indent.
Drop or raise caps was the other thing.
Raise caps. Raise caps is not hard. You'd think it's hard, but it's not. Just want to make sure these were paragraph breaks. Okay. First off, let me just add space after my paragraphs so I can see where my paragraphs start. So there's my space after my paragraphs, right? Then raised cap was the number. Is that what it was?
In the dessert menu, I think.
Oh, is the
Yeah.
dessert menu had raised caps?
It's the
The D.
It's the D. Raised cap is so simple. Ready? You're going to go, really? You're going to say, really? Raised cap is this. Watch. Here's the D in dessert menu right there. Uppercase D. E-S-S-E-R-T. You know how there's two S's in dessert? You do? Marisol knows. You get to say it. You want to say it? Compared to desert, how do you spell desert? One S. And you spell dessert two S's. I learned this like in elementary school. You always want two desserts, so you get two S's. Did you ever hear that, you guys? Yeah, thank you. All right, I'm not alone. All right, here's the raise cap here. Right now, you just go up to the character panel,
Is that what you do?
and that's how you raise it. You just increase the size of it. I know you'd think it was some really convoluted thing, and it's not. The convoluted part about caps is this, and you will get to these if you haven't already, which is, let me hit undo. The convoluted part about caps is I'm going to click anywhere on this paragraph, so it's going to apply to my paragraph panel. And I can use my paragraph panel, and I can create a paragraph that has what's called drop caps. Drop caps show up right there. You see where my cursor is? And I can say that I want a cap to drop down 2 lines deep, and I want a drop cap 2 letters wide. That's how you create a drop cap. That part's, did you get to that yet in the book?
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
Drop caps are kind of fun.
Would you need a space though after the X?
Yeah,
It's not
you
so
would.
close to the-
That's a design thing. And what you might choose to do, because it looks too tight and it looks like DX should go into this word, you get to decide how you space it. You can space it by adding, you could go, for example, to type, and you can go to insert white space, pen space. You could do that. Then there's something super hard. Let me teach you something super hard now, which I couldn't understand the value of for the life of me. See, I think this looks weird, that I added this space here, but now there's no space here. There's something that I didn't find the value of until later, which is there's something called indent to here. Anybody found that yet? It's going to show up for you. Indent to here is kind of weird, but I want that R to line up under that E. So I put my cursor where the E is in front of it. I go to type. I go to insert special character, other, indent to here. Okay? I would probably be a smarter person if I remember the shortcut, but I don't. And which is a command and a backward slash. But watch what happens to everything below. It's kind of cool, yeah? And there are values for this that I use it for, but it's very random. I wouldn't use it often because it's kind of a nightmare to undo also. All right, the other thing is, let me undo that because I don't want to screw up what we're up to. So what we're really up to is this. What we're really up to is we want to take these paragraphs, we want to indent the paragraphs by using the paragraph panel. So we go to paragraph formatting controls, which is the same thing over here, and we're going to indent our paragraph 3/4 of an inch, let's say. And then what we want is this line to go back out. And right below the indent, the left indent, is something called first line left indent. The advantage of first line left indent for a paragraph is if you type your documents where you like to tab in your first line, if that's how you like to type documents, you can set up an indent of, let's say, a ½ inch for every paragraph, and you don't have to hit the tab button. You can see the value in that, right? Like for term papers and stuff. All right. The other part is there's a negative first line indent where instead of making it positive number, I just go negative, and my first line is going back out from whence it came. And it'll stop once I hit 0.625. It won't let me go further. And that's how the production sequence was set up, that assignment. And then what they did was they had the number 1, I think, period, and I think they just had a letter space. And if I remember right, the number 1 was a blue. And then if I remember right, they had this first line, and it was red, and it was small caps, yes? See, I've been grading this way too long.
With the first letter.
And the first letter is bigger than the rest or something?
The number.
The number is bigger than the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you highlight the number.
The first letter's bigger too.
Okay, and you highlight the number. Let's make that a monster letter so you can see my number. There. Okay, and then this line might be 12 points. And so let's say, so this was what, 30 points, this was 12 points, the body copy was 10 points, right? If I were creating style sheets for it, I would make a style sheet. I would go to my character style window. I know this is a little sophisticated, but just enjoy it. It's not showing up here because it's, I can come here, character styles. And the number 1 is active, right? So I can just make a new character style. I'm going to call it number, and watch what it's going to have. It's going to say 48 points, and it's going to have the color blue, right? All right, that's done. Now I can highlight this. What did I make? 18-point red type, new character style. I can make this red 18-point. I make notes to myself so I remember what the heck I did. And it was also small caps, if I remember right. Might be all uppercase. You guys might want to double check it. And we look, again, 18 points, small caps, and red. See, it's already defaulted to it because I did it once. And now you have 2 choices when you do this. I can just select my number 2 here, and I can eyedrop my number 1 and get the same result, yes? I can highlight this first line here, and I can eyedrop my red here and get the same result, yes? Or I can go to, let me hit undo a second. Or I can highlight this and use my character style sheet and apply it. Did I do that wrong?
You want number.
Number. I want number. And then I have this, and I get 18 point small caps. So same result. The only advantage of using style sheets in something that's so short as this little brief document, the only advantage is if I couldn't decide things and I want to make my red now, my red caps blue. And if I've used style sheets for them, they'll change that way, right? And then here I can use style sheets for this one. There. Y'all get that?
If we did make, so the D is a raised cap, but the N didn't become a raised cap.
Because it's not an uppercase letter. Oops. It's a small cap, and that was a lowercase. Sorry, I should make it an N so you can see it.
Okay.
It just
So
wasn't
it
an
will
uppercase
maintain.
because it was small caps. Any other questions for weird and random things? Are you enjoying this? A little bit?
Yes.
Answering some questions.
A little bit? Okay. All right. Would you like me to okay, here's your choice. I can demo the dessert, I could demo the teacup thing, which I think is valuable in the monster thing, or I can give you the whole rest of the class to just do work. So who would like hopefully a quick demo? That's about a third of you. Who wants to just work? Oh man, that's a toughie, isn't it? All right, so here's the deal. If you don't want to listen, you can do your work. How's that? And if you want to listen, I'm demoing and you'll see it happen. So I leave that to you then. So I will demo the teacup. And what I would like to demo about the teacup is really how to intuitively set up a document. Yeah. Yeah. What, Ian? Yeah, Ian. Uh-huh. Okay. All right. So if you are, you might, even if you're working on your own, you might really want to glance up here and look, because for most students, this demo of how to set up a document and intuit it is super valuable for them. Okay. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at the artwork and resources folder, and here's our student handout PDF. And when I first look at a document, I usually create, this one's hard for you guys. You're all going to want to look at this. You're not going to want to miss this one. So take a look up here. Learning X and Y coordinates seems kind of weird in InDesign, and so the purpose for it is hard to understand. But how many of you know what a window envelope is? Okay. A window envelope is what you get your bills in, where your name shows through a little window on a number 10 business envelope. Anybody not know what I'm describing? We all get bills, right? Okay. So when you design something and the placement of a window or a box or something is critical, which is often the case, more than you can imagine, knowing how to measure the placement of a text box or where something's positioned is super important. So that's what this XY coordinate is, and it's not a very intuitive thing. It's kind of peculiar. What it's referring to is the bounding box for a shape. So this is just a square. And it's also referring to something called your reference point in InDesign. And the XY coordinate is referring to, remember geometry, where the X is horizontal, I think, and the Y is the vertical lines on a grid? Anybody not know what I'm describing? I'll draw it for you. You can speak up, you know. It's been a long time since I've had geometry, really. Okay, so then this isn't so hard, and this is what you're going to have to do is fill in the XY coordinates for each of the things you're seeing. So if I have my InDesign document in the upper left corner right here, this is referred to as the reference point. So if I draw a box randomly, it has all of its anchor points around the perimeter, and it has the center point where the cross is, right? So if we look using the selection tool where this box is placed, my reference point is measuring the placement of this box based on this upper left corner of the box right there. And this box is placed at almost 2 inches and almost 2 inches, right? So if I move it to 2 inches, I was doing right. I move it 2 inches here, it's at the X coordinate of 2 inches in the upper left corner. And if I move it down a little, it's now at the X coordinate. When you have a ruler in InDesign, if you double click in this upper left corner under the red button, and you double click, that will set your 0, 0 coordinate to the upper left corner of the page. I can click and drag my 0, 0 coordinates to start on the edge of this box. Do you guys know this yet? No? See, it is worthwhile to watch, right? And now you notice my box sits at 0, 0. If I want to move my ruler measurements back to the upper left corner, I double click, and now my box still, notice, is now at 2 inches, 2 inches. Okay, that's not so sophisticated. So if I look at this assignment right here, I look at my box, and right now I can drag a ruler guide. I'm in Acrobat, and I hit Command R for my ruler, and I drew a ruler guide right here. Notice it shows at the 1 inch, what did we say, Y is vertical? at the 1 inch coordinate, we'll see. We'll go back to InDesign, let's see. If y is vertical, it says, now you see, we're at the x coordinate of 2 inches. I can drag my ruler guide here. We're now at the y coordinate of 2 inches. See it in that gray box there? All right. So horizontal is y. If I do the same thing here and I drag a guide here, we're at a 1/2 inch y coordinate. So here's your first answer. Write it down, right? You're at 1 inch for the x and a 1/2 inch for the y. Now, let's look at this one. Now what's happening is this is saying your reference point is not the upper left corner. This is saying your reference point is right here. It's in the middle of the left side. So now if I take my ruler guide based on this little diagram here and I drag it down, what do we say? This is my y? I get so confused. Thank you for keeping track of me. So we decided that this middle point right here is at 1.5 for the y, right? And we pull this reference point here, and it's 1 inch still for the x. Okay, those are no-brainers, right?
How do you figure out what reference point you're supposed to use?
Right here. See that little image? Okay. So now let's get harder, because most of these are pretty easy. So now we look at this one right here. What's the reference point? It's referring to the dot that this little reference point is covering, so let's not do that. I mean, obviously it's a no-brainer that this one is referring to the right side here, which is showing me 3 inches on this ruler. I'm looking at the diagram ruler, not the real live ruler. Okay, and then it's also saying it's in the middle, so it's right here again at the 1.5, right? All right, here's the part that gets weird. So Tyler, since you graciously spoke up, you know how I am about this stuff, right? Let me hit undo, 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 undo until I get rid of my guides, which isn't working. It's not. Okay. All right. So what happens is when you create a document like this weird little squiggle, it creates a bounding box, because if I'm in InDesign and let me fill with a color. Let me fill with this blue. Why isn't that working? In InDesign. Oh, I had a guide going. That's what it was. Okay, here's a blue. So if I create a document and it's shaped like, I'm sorry, not a document. If I create a shape, a box, a graphic box, how do you measure the XY coordinates of that crazy graphic box? Well, what happens is crazy graphic boxes still have bounding boxes. So all you're really looking at is the bounding box. So let me delete this one. So the bounding box here for this one is this. If I pull my ruler guide here, the bounding box for this is at, it tells you, look up above, it says the x coordinate for it is at 2.73. And let's pull down here for the y coordinate. And it says the y coordinate's at 4.625. See that? In the upper left corner here, it just tells you your information. So if we go back to this Acrobat file and we pull our guides down and we're looking at this diagram here for our bounding box, we're realizing, and the reference point, Tyler, is in the upper left corner. So you with me, Tyler?
Yeah.
Alrighty. So here's your big question. So if I pull my guide down to the top of this document, where can you see back there where my, what is it, my y coordinate is?
Yeah.
What is it?
No, I can't see.
So it's at 0.75. And then we can see right here that the bounding box on the upper left, on the left side of, based on the diagram, is at 1.5, right? So you can see it's really not very complicated. And the value of it is under measuring an envelope, looking where a window is, and knowing that that window box has to be set at a certain location. You see the value to it? All right.
Where are you seeing the numbers where it tells you now?
How do I know the number?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this ruler, and this ruler here going across is 0, 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch. So if I'm between halfway between 1 inch and 2
Is
inch,
there a way to change it there to like 0, 0?
no, no,
And
there's
see,
no way, because this is a photo of
Yeah.
the project. And I'm looking to see where this intersects. Why would I want it to be 0, 0?
Oh no, I was talking about the big one. Like
The big one.
actual ruler, yeah.
How do I make it? 0, 0, okay. So I can double click, and 0, 0 is up in this upper left corner where I'm wiggling my mouse,
Yeah.
my arrow. But to make this 0, 0 down here, I grab, hold my mouse down, I'm dragging to here, and now it's 0, 0.
Okay.
Yes. And if I want to reset it, I click.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't understand like what was in the corner. Like,
Oh, this is called a reference point.
Yeah.
So
What's the difference?
what's the difference? So let's look at this box, okay? So let's put this box up at 2 inches, 2 inches. My weird shape, right? You understand the weird shape has a bounding box, right? All right. So right now it's at 2 inches, 2 inches. Now watch what happens if I want to measure the bottom right corner where it sits on the page. I click my reference point to the bottom right corner. This is a good question. I should have covered this. And now it's telling you the bottom right corner measures right here. The center of the box measures right here. So I could create a bunch of shapes, and I can create a bunch of random shapes, right? And if I want all my random shapes to align at 2 inch centers, this is measuring my document at 2 inch center. So if I make that 2 inch center and that 2 inch center, that box goes to the 2 inch center mark right there. Watch, let me click on, oops, I didn't want to make another polygon. If I want to take this shape and I want to move it, here's my reference point, 2 inch center, and I put it in the 2 inch center. Look at how it stacks on top of each other. And if I take this one and I want to make it go to the 2 inch center, so everything intersects at that 2 inch center XY coordinate. So you're going to find where the value is to measuring that, but understanding it exists is useful. Okay? All right. So let me create a new document based on this beautiful morning document. And what I want to call attention to is a few things. When I set up a document and I know how I'm going to design it, I look at where I want my margins, I look at what my text is going to do, and I look at things that I make things as fast as I can, because time is money, right? And if you get too expensive for your clients, they're not going to hire you again. So I noticed that in the way back, and I also think in terms of my documents, I'm so sorry. Notice in the way back here, there's a dotted line, and it's a rectangle, and it sits about a 1/2 inch from the top, a 1/2 inch from the side, and a 1/2 inch from the bottom. And then we have, and then the same dotted line sits, I'm thinking, about 2 inches from the left edge. Then on top of that dotted line is this creamy color, brown color rectangle, which sits about 2 inches down from the top, 2 inches up from the bottom, and about 1 inch from the right. You following me? And then maybe about 1 inch from the left. So I'm just going to start creating a document building these things. So I'm going to make a new document. This has no bleed, so I go to Command N for new. I turn off facing pages, and I'm going to make a margin guide on the right of a 1/2 inch, top and bottom 1/2 inch, and on the left side I'm going to make it 2 inches. So 1/2 inch top and bottom. The left side I'm going to break my chain link is going to be 2 inches, and the right side a 1/2 inch. And right now the first thing I can do, which I know exists, is I can draw my rectangle right here, which was dotted, right? And it was a brown, so I'm going to click on a color, And I'm going to make some little brown color by mixing my inks here. There. Too much magenta. There's a brown. And I'm going to make this a percentage of that brown because it was a tan background, wasn't it? So that was 20% tint. And then I just went up here to my tint and changed it to 20. And then I'm going to make my stroke active. I'm going to make it a solid brown stroke. It was dotted, right? Remember? And I don't know how big, so I'm going to eyeball it and make my little dots. Okay? I think I made them way too big, but. And there's two choices of dots, and I think they're Japanese dots, to tell you the truth.
So you can choose either one.
Pardon me?
You can choose either one.
Yeah. If you're building it on your own, I'll know. I'll know because somehow their dots always look different than my dots. And I'll be really proud of you if you build it on your own. So I'll know. All right? So here I've started something, so I'm just going to save it right off the bat. So I'm going to save my file. I don't want to call it save, do I? I want to call it Tea Party. And I also want to call it Torf. There you go. And I'm going to put it in my Artwork and Resources folder for Beautiful Morning because I like keeping everything together. All right. Let's go look at this and make sure I did that right. Oh, it's a white background, so the square isn't filled with this. So I got to fill this box with either none or with white. And then make a smaller box that starts at about 2 inches, and it's an inch from the right and an inch from the left. So let me do that instead. So this box that I have active is filled with nothing. And I'm going to pull a guide because I like working with guides. I think we said that it's an inch from the left. We said it's 2 inches from the top. I'm going to pull another guide. It's 2 inches from the bottom.
But this, you're not sure about the measurement.
No, but I'm bravely going into it because I'm going to eyeball it because I'm the designer, right?
Is that okay for this project?
If you build this yourself and it looks about as close as it can possibly be, that would be awesome. Send me a note. Write a note when you submit it. I built this from scratch because I wanted to give it my best shot. Let me know how I did. Okay? And we'll let you know. Like I said, John's really, really critical. He likes it to be so perfect. I like to know that you built it, truthfully, because I think that's harder. So now I'm going to create a box based on my guides, which was just like that, which was this brown, filled with brown, 20%. Right? Did it. You can also print it and measure it, which is not a bad idea either. And then look that these teacup boxes sit about a ½ inch from the dots, and they sit about a ½ inch from this background. And the same thing down here, and there's 4 of them. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to deselect the box so nothing's active. I'm going to go to File, Place. I'm going to locate my teacups, which are in the Artwork folder here. I'm going to let my cursor load with it. And I'm going to go up to the 1 inch mark, and I'm going to go to this 1 inch mark, which I think is about where they stand, and just click, and here's 1 teacup. I don't think I'm setting this up exactly right. You guys can measure more because I'm not staring at it exactly. But there we go. There's 4 teacups. So now here's my fun part, which is the stuff that they don't show you yet. If you hold your Option key down, you get a double arrow. Can you all see that?
Mhm.
And that means that I'm going to duplicate this graphic that's active. If I hold my Shift key down with it, it won't wiggle. It will constrain proportions, which means when I click and drag, it will stay aligned with this one. So right now, if I click and drag, click and drag, click and drag, I've got my 4 teacups.
It was Option Shift.
Uh-huh, that's exactly what I did. And I'm going to take this bottom teacup down to right about there. And here's the part that I think is super fun. I can marquee all these teacups, but it also marqueed my tan box. So I'm going to hold my Shift key down and deselect my tan box. Hi, John.
Hi. And
And now I have the 4 teacups active, right? And So we're almost at our 1.5 hour mark, right? Or,
Probably a good idea
To
to
stop?
stop and restart it.
yeah,
If you can.
okay. We have, what time did we start this? About 8? Yeah, let's see if I can get it done. Oh,
We
There's
took
no-
a roll,
no
it's
way
like
to
10
tell.
after.
there's no way to tell. Okay, we'll just keep going. We'll be brave. So they're all selected, teacups. You can also do this. You can hold your shift key down and select, 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 select. They're all 4 active. And did I select them or deselect them? Select, select, there we go. Select, select. Now you go to Window, Object, Align, one of my favorite panels. Love my favorite panel here. Align doesn't always show you all the options. You might just see this. Use the pull-out bar, go to Show Options, because this is what you really want. You want Distribute Spacing. And you can distribute spacing based on the selection, or you can distribute spacing, you can align based on the page. So I have it selection. It's going to vertically distribute my spacing. So you see how they're perfectly equally distant?
How'd you get to that?
It's magic. You see, you didn't want to miss this one because, so I hit undo. I went to Object. I went to Align. And then you want vertical distributing spacing because I used to have to measure that. That was excruciating. Okay, and then since we've saved our document, we just hit Command S and we save it again. Then we come back here, we look and we notice there's this cute little flower glyph in between each of these, right? So one of the cool things about InDesign is it creates something called Snap to Guides. So I'm going to create a text box that's snapping to the boundaries of my T-box. I'm going to type some random character in there. I typed a G. I'm going to go to my Object Text Frame Options. My box is active. And I want to vertically center that G because it's going to be my glyph, right? And I'm going to say OK. And then I'm going to go to my paragraph panel and I wish to center the G in the box. Can you all see that? Moving around? All right. Now, I don't know what glyph it is, so I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to go to, there's something called ornaments. I think it's called type embellishments, different fonts for different things. Here's Webdings. We can put a train in there if we wanted to. Here's Bodini ornaments. Let's use that one. They have pretty ornaments. So I'm going to select Bodini ornaments, but I don't know what the symbols look like. So I'm going to go to type. I'm going to go to glyphs, and I'm going to find something that I really like that's pretty. And we're going to pick this one. We're going to pick this one. And I double click, and it puts in my ornament. Yes?
I couldn't
Okay.
even figure out what the purpose of the glyph thing was, but that makes more sense now.
Does it make sense now? Yeah. And then I'm going to highlight my glyph, double click on it, highlight it, and I'm going to make it bigger because I want a bigger glyph. John, they're going to write us a note if they build this from scratch because we're going to give them applause for that. So if they build it from scratch, it won't be perfect because it won't be the template that's supplied, but it'll be as close as possible, and we're going to be proud that they built it from scratch. Okay?
I have a question. When you centered it left to right, why did you use paragraph and not underneath the, okay, go back to text? So you chose center in that box.
You center your paragraphs. I centered vertically using Object Text Frame Options.
Right.
I centered my paragraph, my alignment of my text
So
by using the paragraph tool.
back up in the, if the A is selected instead of the paragraph.
I don't have that choice.
What is the far right under?
Oh, I can do it there. It's the same
It's
thing.
the same thing.
It's the
Okay.
same thing.
It's not something.
It is the same thing. It's a paragraph alignment. Yes, same thing. Now, here's the cool thing about this. For this, because I've spaced these equally now and I made my text box the size that fills in that space, I just use that Object Text Frame, the Option Shift, and I can snap these extra glyphs in between each of my boxes. So it just snaps in there. So it's done and I can save that. So I'm starting to look pretty close to this, right? And I had more fun doing it than using their template. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this PDF file and see if I can grab the text, which it won't let me grab. It won't let me. I'm in the PDF file. I'm using my type tool. I cannot grab the text. But that's just not a problem for us. Do you know why? Let me show you. I can go right now to object, to file, and I can go to place, and I can locate this beautiful morning folder, and it supplies me with a text document. So I went to file, place, I'm locating the text. I open it, my cursor loads with a text, and let's just come back here. So I'm about an inch down from the top with my text, and I'm about a half inch to the left. I can make this brown box my text box, but it's a little more cumbersome than I want to. So I'm just going to create a text box here from top to bottom. And so if I come back to this document, my cursor is loaded with text. I'm going to go about a half inch in. I'm going to go about a half inch away from the frame and place my text. And so I don't have to go back and forth. I believe it's very specific about your text. That part we have no forgiveness for. All right? It tells you right here how to set up the text. Now there's going to be something I'm going to show you which you don't know about drawing lines and you're going to want to know. So for my text, this is Adobe Caslon Pro. That's Myriad Pro at the top. It's 32 on 27. So here we are, here we're at Myriad Pro. And it looks condensed. Let's make it bold condensed. Let's make it 27 point, might not be bold. Might be 21 point leading. It's not bold. And then Adobe Caslon Pro 22 on 26. So not bold, just condensed. And this is Caslon. I gotta go to Adobe. Adobe Caslon Pro. What did I say it was? 22. It's italic. 22 over 26. So it's italic. It's 22 over 26 point leading. Here's the thing you're going to need to know. Notice that there's a swash in here for the T. So I like getting my swashes off my glyphs panel because I'm so visual. I like to see all my choices. Or I can just highlight this T. I can use the pull-out menu here, and I can go to Open Type, Swash, and it becomes a swash. Same thing with the G. I can use my pull-out menu here, Open Type, Swash, and the G becomes a swash, which is right there. Now here's the part you're going to need to know. There's a line under here, and it says, it's called Rule Below, and it's a half a point line. It says 0.5. It also says the paragraph has space after. Well, I can't see that. There we go. Bless you. And here's what you need to know about rules. Who's done Rule Below before? Okay, so if you're working on your own back there, take a look because you're going to regret not knowing this part. Rule Below is a paragraph control. And it's really when you make forms and when you draw lines to fill in blanks and so forth, or you want an underline to text, this is how you do it. So you click on the paragraph that you want to add this to. This paragraph has space after of that much. And then what you want to do is with the paragraph panel active, this is found in the paragraph panel, go to Type and go to Paragraph. There's a pull-out here, and it's called Paragraph Rules. It's found in the paragraph panel. You get a dialog box that comes on, and watch what happens. I'm going to click Preview so you see what happens as I do it. I don't want a rule above the tea garden. here, now you can see what I'm going for. I want a rule below it. I want to turn the rule on. I want the rule to be half a point. Rule is the same thing for the word line. I want the rule to be the color of my text, which is black. I want the rule to be the line length of the text that it underlines. Did you see it change? And I want the rule to be offset by 1/8 of an inch from my type. And that's it. It's magic. It's great. There we go. Done. Now, there's a few things here on the right that I completely disagree with. If you look at how they've set up the text, there's a few things. And some of these things John and I even argue about. One thing, so let's look at this. All the type is Adobe Caslin Pro 14/20. So let's do that. The bottom line isn't, but we may as well change it all. So we'll go to our character panel, Adobe Caslin Pro, 14-point, 20-point leading. Where John and I argue is there is a long dash between dessert and of and. And right now it's a hyphen. And where we argue is John says that grammatically, which he looked up, I'm sure, because you did, that we insert a special character, a dash, an M dash, which is the width of an uppercase M, and the long dash is not supposed to be set off by letter spaces. I don't like the look of it, so as a designer, I use my latitude and I put a letter space in front of my M dashes and after them, because I like how it looks. But you looked it up and it's grammatically correct to not have a space, I think.
It's the way it used to be back when disenfranchised was an incorrect term.
There you go. Okay, so that's what John did. Now, let's see. It's Julia. Yes? Julia? You're Julia. Who's in front of you?
Lauren.
Lauren. Lauren, look. Watch my raised cap. My raised cap is, they don't even tell you what the raised cap is. But here's my raised cap. Okay? We like it, right? All right. We also notice that there's space after my paragraphs, so I'll highlight all of this and go to my my paragraph panel, and yeah, I've got space after. And the other thing is there's a column width here. I don't know that they tell you the column width for this, but I suggest that you break the lines similarly here. One thing I would not do in an invitation ever is have hyphenation, so turn off hyphenation. The other thing is when I read an invitation, I read it and decide where my line breaks are, and I put in something called a soft return. Who knows what a soft return is? So if you're not listening the way back, do you know what a soft return is?
Shift return.
Shift return. Good job. That was good. That was perfect. Exactly. Shift return. Shift return will break a line, but it won't break the paragraph and add space after. So I would probably narrow the width of my invitation here. I might choose to select all my text and do balanced ragged lines. I showed you that the other day. So they all are about the same line length. However, this is where I don't like balanced ragged lines. I don't think that you should break street information apart, generally speaking, if you don't have to. And sometimes there's better ways to read something and break your own lines. So you might, I'm hitting undo, Command Z. So our Tea Room and Garden offers you, so I'd say our Tea Room and Gardens offer you a slower pace. And I might leave it at pace, but it might be offer you a slower pace in a quiet and serene space. Celebrate the day, soothed by the fragrance of teas and flowers. You decide how to break it there. Enjoy a light lunch or sweet, rich, whatever. But what I wouldn't do, so I'm going to leave it as balanced ragged lines.
Aren't we going
You don't have to. That's why if you read it, I personally would never let this hanging of stick out here. I think that looks funny. The other thing is I would break my line after corner. I would say find us at the corner of, and then I would hit a shift return there, because I like having my whole line of direction on the same line. And then because the comma is a perfect breaking spot, I'd break my line there. And that's not what they did here. They balanced ragged lines, but I think that's more readable. May not be as pretty in the width, but I think it's easier to read, and that matters to me. And then here, here again, they put an N dash in, an N dash, not a hyphen, and that would be type, insert special character, dashes, N dash. And this type is different. This is Myriad Pro Condensed. And if you're lazy and you want to get a little jump start on that Myriad Pro Condensed, I can highlight all this. I can use my eyedrop. I can marquee it there so I have the right font. And then I can go to my type tool and my character panel and now just change that to 15 on 17. And I didn't have to go through all that type selection tool. Sometimes you can do it all kinds of ways. And then the only other thing I would look at here, if I look at my document, is I would notice where this sits in the page. And personally, this completely bothers me that it sits lower on the bottom in that brown box than up above. So what I'd probably do is take this and I would go to Object Text Frame Options and I would choose probably to center it because I think it looks better. And I'm the designer. I'm in charge. So here's my view. How'd I do? I did pretty good, right? Looks a little different. Yeah, John?
When we were taught to design show cards, we always moved the text up slightly, so there was more space at the bottom than at the
Right.
top.
Actually, when you frame things, John's absolutely right. What you do aesthetically, generally you move things up a little bit because your eye wants to pull things down. So it's slightly up is actually more common usage. Now the other thing is, actually, I think the reason mine doesn't look exactly like theirs was, one, I didn't read the directions, and I think their page, honestly, I think their page is not 8.5 by 11.
Yeah.
Is
I'm
it?
pretty sure it is.
Is it?
Yeah, because I was just looking at that.
Did you? So I'd probably be a little more careful than I was if I were you. Let's just look and see what size page it is. So here's their template. No, check it out. Look at this. It's an 8 by 10 page, which is why mine doesn't look right. So here's your page size, and if you do it that way, you'll be right on target. That's why mine always comes out wrong, because I've never measured the page size. So it's an 8 by 10 page template that they give you. They give you the template. They don't tell you. They don't dictate to you the page
It
size.
must be the PDF one that they put like on the handouts and hand out.
Yes, right, but they've blown it up, or they've changed the proportion or whatever. Yeah, John?
In most cases, it doesn't have to be right, it just has to look right.
Yeah, yeah, John's right. So you can see here you learned quite a few skills. Let me just show you one thing with a monster just to make things super simple for the monster. And even if you're working at your desk, it's worth taking a peek up from what you're up to. Just to look at the monster, and then we'll be all done and you'll have the rest of the class for work, which is right here. The whole purpose of the monster assignment is, I'm actually surprised at how many people struggle with this monster assignment when I think it's just a cakewalk. I really do. They supply all the boxes for you. They supply everything. The purpose of the monster assignment is for you to understand how to place a graphic and have it fit, and to take the same graphic, paste it into a box, and reposition this huge graphic in a little box. And it's very simple. One thing I want you to see is that these boxes have rounded corners. And have you learned how to make rounded corners yet in design? No, I don't think so. Okay, watch this. This is totally cool. So if you're in the way back doing stuff, Don't miss this moment. It's very fun. I'm going to make my box active. I'm going to fill this box with a color. There we go. Now you can see what I'm doing because you can see it on the screen. So if I click the box and make it active, there's a yellow box in the upper right-hand corner of a shape, a rectangle. If I click on this, my corners are going to become diamonds, yellow diamonds. If I don't, look at my hand here. I put my hand up so you know I'm only doing this with my mouse. If I drag this in, I get equal rounded corners all around, right? If I press my shift key, I'm controlling just this one. And look how pretty that is. Isn't that pretty? It's a really nice design feature, I think.
So you just grab the corner?
I just drag the corner in. When I press the shift key, I can control one. When I didn't press anything, they all went in. And notice that little window that shows up that tells you how round the corners are. Like I create labels a lot. Let me go to InDesign Preferences for this file and change it to inches, not points. And I create a radius. So how round should my corners be? I create an 1/8 of an inch radius on lots of labels. And this is where I would look to see what my radius is. And my radius shows up right here, 1.2. And that's now a document with an 1/8 of an inch radius. Marianne, thank you.
Does it tell you how much, like how rounded it needs to be?
It's just,
Or do
oh,
you
in this
guys-
document?
Yeah.
In this document, I don't even think it asks you to do this. I'm showing you a bell and whistle. That's all. So you know, because I think it's completely fun. What this document does tell you to do, it tells you to make this big box active. While it's active, you go to File, Place. Because it's active, it's going to place the monster EPS, encapsulated postscript, which means it's an illustration probably created in Illustrator. And it's going to place the monster inside the box. Your cursor won't load because you have an active box, so the graphic's going to pop into the box. And there it pops. Now, it might tell you what size the graphic should be. Let's see if it does tell you that. I think it might just tell you to position it. So the graphic, actually, so the monster's too big for the box. So it's going to show you how to fit the monster in the box. So the monster's in the box is active. I go to Object, Fitting. I want to fill the frame with the monster proportionally. So I don't want to crop any of the monster off. I'm sorry, I don't want to distort the monster. And there we go. Monster fits the box. Now I can do a couple things here. I can't.
Can you repeat what the steps were?
Uh-huh.
Object.
Yeah. There we go. Got a box. My box is active. I go to File, Place to place a graphic in the active box. I locate the monster. I open it. It pops in the box. Now, here's something to know. With the white selection tool, the white arrow, notice I'm going to get this monster. See this brown border? That's the shape of the monster, the graphic itself. And that's how I move it inside the box, by using my white arrow and moving my mouse. It's dealing with the content of the box and not the box itself. All right? The other thing I can do with the box active is go to Object, Fitting, Fill the Frame Proportionally. Don't ever distort a graphic. I just won't even look at your work if you distort a graphic. Okay? All right, now there's two ways to fill these three little boxes here, which needs to show the eye and the scales and the jagged back of the monster, or whatever you choose to put in the box. I can now, with my selection tool, click on the contents of the box and go to Edit, Copy. So I've copied the monster graphic. I can click on one of these little boxes and I can go to Edit, Paste into the little box, and my monster goes in there. And I can just use my white arrow and move it around. And if I hold my mouse down, I can see a ghosted image of the monster, so I can position his eye just to the center of the box. Totally neat, right? I can click on this one, go to edit, paste into, and again, hold my mouse down hard. Now I can position it to the scales. Click on that box, go to edit, paste into, hold my mouse down hard, and I'm going to put his foot, his toes right there. Cool, right? The only other thing that I want to caution you about that I'm a total stickler for, because at this point you should absolutely have this perfect. See where Monsters is that specific font? Run for Your Life, the leading, the centering, the large letters, where this sits in relation to these boxes on the left, all this matters to me and John.
There's a very good template for this one, so you shouldn't ever hand it in
Right.
unless it matches up.
Right, and John has a template too. And then the other thing that's a cakewalk for you, here's a couple questions that come up from people. One is, let me zoom in here. People say, I have this weird blue border on this star. Now, this is good. Who knows why that would be? Does anybody know? Check this out. Who knows why that is?
It's an object.
Yeah, who said that? Who said? Crystal. Yes, it's a vector. What they did was they made this starburst for you, and they put the font in here, and they didn't want you to deal with the font, so they converted it to outline, which made it a vector. So when students look at this, they're like, why is this blue outline here? If I go to preview mode, the blue outline doesn't show up at all. And one thing you are supposed to do to all these boxes and the squiggly line is add a drop shadow. And I do want to show you drop shadows because I don't know if they address this either for you. But drop shadows are really fun. And you just make the shape active you want to apply a drop shadow to. And the fastest way to get there is to click this little effects button up at the top on your formatting control panel. Or you can go over here to the right and you probably have effects active. Either way, you click on effects, this little tear off panel, and all your effects choices are going to be right here under the FX when you hold down your mouse. And you want drop shadow, but there's so many controls to drop shadows that you should start to learn to play with this. Actually, you should start to learn to play with all the effects because they're fun. I think they're only looking for the default drop shadow of 75%, which I think is super dark. When I make photographs and I want to add a drop shadow because I think it's going to look great, I usually make my drop shadows 15%, which is super light. You can hardly see it, right? You probably can't see it back there. So you can change that. You can also change by clicking on this color, what color you want your drop shadow, right? Which is kind of fun, which they don't ask you to do. The other thing is you can make inner shadows, which is kind of cool. And you can always change by rotating this around where your inner shadow, the orientation is for the lighting. You can also increase the size of your inner shadow or decrease the size of your inner shadow. You can change the distance of something. So play with these. This bevel and glow is kind of fun too. You can make it look like a button or raised or embossed or something. So you can apply that to type and you can apply that to shapes, which is pretty attractive. So don't forget your drop shadow. And are there any other questions?
Just got a couple, but like I think it might be I just kind of closed out of something I can't figure out how to get back.
You closed out of a file and you can't figure out how to recover it?
Like when on the typography and then there's a little thing over it says like pages and layers and everything.
Yeah?
Like not there.
Oh, and you lost it.
Yeah, I lost.
You go to window and it's going to be here. It's going to be somewhere in under window.
Okay.
Just look under window and it'll show up. And you can put it back. Like I can take my effects panel and I can put it back and nest it back here. You can move things wherever you want them. Yeah, Marianne. Marianne, right?
And then on the handout, does it tell you which fonts you have to use, or do you have to identify these?
I think this really weird cowboy-looking font you have to identify.
Okay. Along with like size and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
And I really am a stickler. There's so little type that they ask you to do on this thing that I really expect you to do it. And it's interesting. John and I can tell when you've applied space after or a hard return instead by mistake when you have spacing between paragraphs. So here's that drop cap, actually. I showed you drop cap today. There's a drop cap right here. The first paragraph, it's a 3-line drop cap. Okay, we should be good.